Welcome to AIGA's Fireside Chat. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin our Fireside Chat today, a few housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded and will be available for viewing post-event. We are live streaming to our followers on LinkedIn and Facebook. And please remember that all AIGA events follow our code of conduct. Please connect with us and share your thoughts. Hashtags for this Fireside are AIGA Design and Future of Design. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome Bennie F. Johnson, AIGA's Executive Director, and today's guest, Alex Center, founder of Center. Bennie?
Thank you, Amy, and welcome everyone to our December Fireside Chats. So we thought that it would be really dynamic this year to close out the year with Fireside Chats that looked at leadership in design and to bring together some of the most innovative, creative, and fun voices in design to sit down and have chats this month. So I can't think of a better person to start off than my dear friend, the incredible, the awesome Alex Center. He's a brand builder, award-winning designer. He's won awards both inside, outside, and outside again in terms of design and leadership. He runs the studio, aptly named Center, based in Brooklyn, where he's worked on award-winning campaigns for innovative companies. One at the heart of Center is the notion of working with startups and turning them into icons, and working with icons and teaching them how to behave and perform like a startup. It's not only as an entrepreneur and as an agency that Alex has shined, it's also in his role working in-house, where he's been a leader in thinking and rethinking about the way in-house design works. He spent 10 years working directly for Coca-Cola, where he began as the design director for very own vitaminwater, smartwater, and POWERADE. He's worked with multiple iconic brands across the globe and has given talks on the power of design and the power of packaging, innovation, and building the next generation of iconic brands. So it is without further ado that I introduce us all for this Fireside Chat to Brooklyn's own Alex Center.
Bennie, how are you? Hey, woo! Crowd goes wild.
Yes, man, I am so good this morning. It is a pleasure to, like I said, to close out our leadership series with you this morning, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled. Fireside, let's warm it up.
Yeah, let's jump right in. And so bad puns are going to be profound throughout this today. So we're going to start not at the beginning, not at the end. We're going to start right here in the center for you.
Puns are like pizza, Bennie. There are no such thing as bad puns. It's all nice. They're all good puns.
Nice. Well, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to take you to this moment. And this is your post-game interview question.
Oh.
Earlier this year, a brand that you worked with from the beginning had the distinct honor of winning not one, but I believe 2 Lions Awards. How did you feel the moment that a brand that you had started off with from its inception is there winning the Lion?
Thank you for that question, because unfortunately, because the award ceremony was live streamed, I never had a chance to give an acceptance speech.
Well, here you go.
So here I am. And so I just want to say thank you to the man above. And I honestly, I should have a speech. I should have had a speech prepared. But the truth is, when I think about that project and I think about that, that brand and that the work that we did that won that award, it is the most true representation of teamwork, collaboration, and the idea that anything great is made by great people working together and doing things that they want to exist in the world, right? I think that was sort of from the very beginning of that project was instilled in sort of we want to do something different. We want to take a chance. We want to make something special. We want to make something meaningful. And we have a small group of people here that can do that. And so I think about that lion, or I think about the Lions and many of the awards that we won for that project as just a symbol of the work, the collaboration, the teamwork, and how much for me it was something about the people that worked on that project for for the most part were people that were just at the beginning of their journey as
Right.
designers, and creators. And for me, I've been doing this for 15 years. And so there's a part of me that wants to say, like, I did it, I made it, like, this is,
Right.
success for me. But to be honest, it was, I really genuinely felt like that project was about putting other people, putting a young Pete Freeman, who was like my junior, my intern, and then is now
Right.
like my lead designer in my company, and like his like first real project in the world. And our copywriter Kevin, who was like not a copywriter a year or two ago, and sort of like found his voice in writing and giving brands a voice, and like now he's an award-winning copywriter, a Cannes Lion-winning copywriter.
Right.
So I often think of myself as like a coach in a way. Like I love sport metaphors. And so I'm really, that project and those awards, I'm so thankful that I created an environment, created a company, created a relationship with a client to give that award-winning designer, award-winning writer to people on my team who are just at the beginning of their journey. And it they might not recognize it now, but it could change their life, and it gives them the belief in themselves that they can do this at the highest level. And that to me is the coolest part about any award at all.
It really is. And somewhat of a visual halo effect. I'd be remiss if I didn't call out the cans above your head.
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting behind me just in case.
Are the actual,
just in case I need to just kind of pull them down, kind of just start rubbing them or cleaning them in a meeting. But yes, no, I think awards are, for designers. I think a lot of people used to care a lot about awards, and awards really meant something. And I think the younger generation maybe doesn't think of them in that same way. But I just think of it as sort of like a celebration of the hard work and of the process and all the things that made the brand what it is. And I think when all that works and when all that is kind of coming together, like that's what's possible.
It really is. So we're going to ladder up literally one more level to the top of your bookshelf for those who aren't familiar with the actual brand. You have an example of the packaging.
Yeah, that's the United Sodas of America. And honestly, that is, when I left Coke and started my own studio, I always, felt like I wanted to build brands from nothing, from really kind of the beginning, and really kind of, be a part of the early ideation and creation and even formulation of products and brands. And working with startups allowed me to sort of to do that. And some of that was because I had been working in-house for so long that I really, I love being a part of all of it. I really like being kind of behind the scenes and sort of a executive producer in a way, right, of a project and putting all the pieces in place. And so when I left Coke and I started my own studio, I was really, I really wanted to have some of those brands that we created and sort of felt like we owned, and something that was like an expression of our studio and the fact that we want to make great things that people love. And we want to build brands with heart and soul, and we want to do things that are beautiful. And so United Sodas is really, I pointed out as like our, like, it's the most pure expression of like what I want Center to be, which is a place where people love to work and we do wonderful things. And when we do everything right and we get all the pieces right and we have that great relationship and collaboration, and we kind of can do anything. And United Sodas is it's the thing that I think a lot of people know us for now. It's really it's bizarre and cool that I'm no longer the guy, Mr. Coca-Cola, or the guy from vitaminwater. I'm now, some people are just like, yeah, he's the guy that did United Sodas of America. And that's surreal and incredibly thrilling for me.
So talk a bit, I always love our conversations, how intentional you are about the clients you work with, the work you do, and kind of this phase in your career. But about 10 years ago, you were really steeped in in-house design and helping to champion in-house. How was it for you making the transition from really being a champion of in-house design to now having your own shop?
Yeah, I'm still a champion for in-house design. I don't think like just because I left or just because I have another sort of chapter in my career that I have left behind sort of in-house. Because I think in-house, whenever I talked at AIG conferences, and I did a lot of sort of conference talks about in-house and my role in-house, and as sort of the AIGA was starting to sort of celebrate in-house designers a bit more, I was definitely sort of at the forefront waving the flag. And I always would say like in-house is a sort of mentality, it's a perspective about sort of being an owner or feeling like it's yours and feeling like you're more than just an employee, you're a part of it. And so you need to take that sort of ownership, but also, you know, to take chances and to push things forward and to really kind of feel like you're more than just you know, a cog in a machine. Your role is to really to live the brand and to act like an owner and to celebrate it like it's yours. And you know, a lot of that experience that I had in-house, I think really taught me sort of the role of design in business and sort of seeing like what it was like when a design studio would present work to a client and then the studio would leave and what the client would then say, like they'd be like, okay, cool, like number 2 is good, but like 3 is no way. And, you know, we need to push them. And like, we need to, you know, really get across this idea of what the product does or whatever, you know, all these kind of conversations about how design was actually implemented and actually deployed to help grow the business inside. And so that way, you know, and being a part of that and having a seat at the table and just kind of being a sponge for a lot of my career inside of Coca-Cola really kind of gave me a perspective that when I'm, you know, when I decided to go to the other side of the table, I often try to make it feel, and I genuinely want to feel like I'm sitting on their side of the table. Just because I'm hired and because we are not a part of the company doesn't mean that the relationship should be client and agency. And it should be like we are doing something together. And I, you know, sort of center principles of like what our studio is. Like, we don't work for people, we work with people. And like, it's as simple as that. And I think the best relationships that we've had have resulted in the best work. And it's kind of, that's on the center side. And that's also on the Coke side. I remember working with White and Kennedy and like some really wonderful shops in, you know, advertising and design and Collins and all these great people. And like the best work came from the best relationships with those outside parties. And when it felt like we were all doing something together, that's when, you know, that's when things really clicked. And that's when magic was made. And so that's the approach I bring to center. And I've often talked about it as an in-house perspective where it's like, we're brand owners as well. Like every brand that we've worked with, United Sodas and Kin and House and everything, Good Light and all these brands that we've been a part of, like, I feel like they're mine. Like, I feel like and I think our whole team feels like we want them to win. We want them to succeed. We care about everything. And like, you know, from the email newsletters to the social posts, to the packaging, to the events, to the stores, like all of it matters to us because we genuinely care like we are a part of it. And that's because we are, and we have that sort of perspective. And I do think it's, you know, it comes from that experience I had working inside of a business, I think.
And I think it's really powerful, like you're saying, having that common purpose and the common objectives you're thinking about is where the best work comes from. When everybody's coming in together, you know, how many times have we seen where an agency or creative group has a different idea and approach and it's at odds with the business? Yeah, your point. And then we're surprised when things don't work out well, right? When we think about why are we all kind of coming together? What are the objectives for us to do something big?
Yeah, I would always say at Coke, like, you're an expert in your thing and everyone's an expert in their thing, but we're an expert in Coca-Cola and we're an expert in vitaminwater. Like, we understand the business and the brand because we built it and we're also inside of it. And so I think the best creative partners are ones that are willing to sort of check their ego at the door and say, what are we trying to solve here? What's the objectives? What are our goals? And like, how are we going to achieve those things? And that's how great things happen. It's not just by, you know, sort of walking in and being like, I'm a genius, let me go do my genius thing, and just kind of, you know, saying, get out of my way, you hired me. And it's like, no, it's we're doing this together. And I do think, it is all part of what design is. It's a collaborative sport. I honestly believe that.
So I'll take you back a bit. We talked about that feeling of winning the award, but when was the moment that you first felt you were a designer?
Great question. I think when I was always like a kid that grew up with like a lot of different hobbies, and like I was always like pretty bad at a lot of things. Like I was into music, but I played the drums poorly, and like I was into sports, but like I played basketball and lacrosse pretty poorly, and like I didn't have any great talents or skills. But as an artist and as someone that could draw and paint, and like that was the place that I felt comfortable. That's the place that I felt confident. And that was the thing that I kind of drove me to pursue this, creative, career. And so I don't think I felt like a designer until I started making things for other people. And so I had a buddy who was in a band, and I was actually in his band in high school. And then he replaced me with a far better drummer.
Better drummer?
Yeah. And now he's a Grammy award-winning songwriter and does a lot of incredible songwriting. Shout out to my friend Scott. And so when I was designing his like MySpace page or his flyers for his for his shows or his like album covers, like I think that's when I started to feel like I'm a designer. This is what I do. This is what I make. And it had nothing to do with money. Like I think both of us look back at that time and like I'm like, ooh, that design is don't want to show it to anyone. And he's like, that music, I don't want to show that with anyone.
Right.
And I think it's a testament to sort of like you gotta pay your dues and make a lot of bad shit and just kind of like you just gotta create. And I think you learn over time. And I always say like you learn how to be a designer by being a designer. And I think it's not until this idea of like just making stuff and making bad stuff and learning how to make better stuff and sitting in meetings and working with clients. And I think for my whole 20s, that's what I did at Coke, was just like designing for brands and going to meetings and working with amazing people and just kind of learning.
So what was the biggest shock for you coming from, so you started you were creating the brand, you were the design voice for the vitaminwater brand, and then you guys are acquired by Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So talk a bit about that experience of, having a brand voice in a space that you really were kind of in your own universe, and then becoming a part of the larger Coke, like metaverse of brands and experience.
Yeah, I guess, Coke is its own metaverse in a way. A term I still don't know what that means. It was surreal. I think for me, I was quite young when it happened. Looking back on it, I sort of, I was still just a kid, and I was thrilled and excited about the opportunity. I was both scared that I was going to like my job that I loved, working for vitaminwater and this like sort of startup culture and this sort of amazing group of people, was going to somehow like start to change. And that did happen over the course of the next like 5 years or so. And so I was definitely like scared and nervous and kind of like sad about sort of that chapter being over. But I was thrilled about the opportunity to work inside of a company that really has an incredible design history. You're talking about the AIGA archives before this chat, and like Coca-Cola archives or something else, right? And there's this history and this legacy of this brand and all the brands that sort of embody and sort of are underneath the Coca-Cola Company umbrella. And so the opportunity for me, someone who loves brands, right? Like I grew up like idolizing like Polo and Tommy Hilfiger and Nautica and like all these like 90s brands that like I would wear with pride on my chest. And like, Coca-Cola was like people, the affinity that people have for Coca-Cola is almost unmatched. Like there are a few brands that people like, you could go to a store, you can go to Urban Outfitters and buy a shirt that just says Coca-Cola on the front, and it's in its fashion, And so to be able to work for a company and a legacy and a brand that obviously got to the top of the mountain in terms of we're talking about like icons, Coca-Cola is the number one icon in certainly in beverage. And you could argue overall, right? And Apple or, whatever, a couple brands here and there. But to be able to be inside of that and to learn and again, like soak it up like a sponge and kind of like take in some of the things that were happening at the time 2006, 2007, 2008, like Coca-Cola they had just launched that sort of new brand system with Turner Duckworth. They were like the Cannes award-winning, like, brand of the year. And so they were doing some really remarkable work. And, they had this idea about sort of, systems and this mass intimacy and this sort of way of creating these design worlds that could be extended and could be realized in different ways. And it was incredibly inspiring for me as a designer to sort of be able to kind of get a key to the castle in a way, and to sort of just be, again, soaking it up and learning and seeing how the world's greatest brand is run and operated and managed and designed.
So you spend 10 years there, and now you're full. You kind of brought in all of this space in here, and it's time to take on the brave, bold world.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to start Center?
Yeah, so I left Coke September 1st, 2017, and I started officially, I launched Center in April of 2018. And so those couple of months between, sort of leaving and starting was basically just me sitting at a computer, kind of dreaming and really, kind of doing some soul searching and really kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what I wanted Center to be. It was obviously a dream of mine to have my own studio, and what I wanted the work to be like, and what I wanted the company to be like, and sort of what my dreams and aspirations were. And I think it happened like quickly, where where all of a sudden, I felt quite lonely, actually quite like I had worked for this company, and I had all this, sort of family, really friends and people that I was working alongside, and people that I could go in and say, hey, did you watch Game of Thrones? Like, what did you think of last night's episode? And like a lot of work and working with other people is relationships, and not just about design, right? It's about being human and people and all of that. And so when I left Coke, I was pretty sad and pretty lonely, and was definitely like kind of by myself. And I think the number one thing I wanted to do with Center was like to build back that family, that like culture, that feeling of like a great group of people that love what they do, and sort of take, that build brands and do it with sort of heart and soul and passion, and to really kind of think about the company from a people first perspective, and trying to find the right people, the right projects, the right collaborators, and the right things to sort of get this, thing to exist. And now we're, about to enter our 5th year, and this was our biggest year yet. We have 10 people on staff, which is surreal and really amazing. And but it's been kind of like, it's been a slow and steady build towards where we are today. And I was definitely, scared and nervous, like anyone, sort of taking a chance and betting on themselves. And I think it definitely took a lot of courage, but I always shout out my wife here when I talk about this part of the story, because my wife gets a lot of credit, but not just because she supports me and loves me, but also because she had her own business that she launched in 2015. And she kind of bet on herself and took a chance and sort of brought this idea of a modern shower cap into the world, and has had a ton of success with it. And shameless plug, you should buy one for your family members for the holidays. Available now at showercap.com. That's 3 H's. But yeah, she had just kind of, I watched her do something extraordinary, which was take something from nothing and build it, and find the right people and the right partners and the right collaborators and the right and pull the plug and jump from the plane. Right. And so when I was thinking about doing the same, it felt possible, I think. And I think it felt like I could do it too, not just because of the experience I had from Coke, but also because I had just watched someone basically do something and jump into entrepreneurship and jump into, sort of building something. And it gave me the courage, I think, to do it. And then I just had to figure out how to do it my way, or how, the way that made sense for Center. And yeah, it was incredibly, yeah, it was a scary time, but I think it was, I'm a guy that often thinks about sort of like, you know, I'm a Libra, so I don't really know exactly. You're a Libra too? There you go.
Yes, that's
And,
that's what we hang out all the time.
and you're also a rap fan. So, you know, the Lil Wayne says, weigh things on my Libra scale. And so that means you like, I tend to like overthink things or try to like, you know, sort of weigh things in my head. And like, I think about leaving Coke and starting Center, and like, I have zero regrets. Like I genuinely am so like thrilled, and I, you know, sort of that I took this chance because I'm having the most fun I've ever had, and I'm like I'm just the happiest in my work and the happiest with what we've been able to build. And that's just a, you know, to anyone out there that's listening, it's like I am scared or nervous, I want to take a chance. It's like you gotta give it, you gotta try, because it's worth it. You know, and you'll never do it if you don't take that chance.
That, you know, my brother, this was the story that I wanted to share with everyone on a fireside. When we first talked about betting on yourself.
Yeah.
And having a space in there. And what we've seen, you know, the research we did this past year with our design POV, we were blown away by roughly 80% of designers will start their own enterprise in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so the question is not whether designers will be entrepreneur at a point in time. It's just how we're able to show up. Do we have the support? Do we have the story journeys, right? Because I know entrepreneurial, sometimes it can be scary being by yourself if you don't understand that's a part of the journey. That's
yeah, and I think, I think that part of the journey was important and necessary and sort of like soul searching for me. Like, but also I don't think I felt quote unquote successful or feel like I had sort of done it until there was a group of people around me that I was like, this is my team. Like, this is we're going to the game together. And it's not just me and sort of my crew. It's like, we're all sort of doing this thing together. And it's about the culture, and it's about the sort of camaraderie, and it's about the collaboration. And my goal always is when clients hire us or we work with people and they say, you know, Alex, like, it was so wonderful working with you, and your team is incredible. Like, and they say, like, we loved working with you guys because you understood us, you collaborated well, you did great work, and also it was enjoyable. Like, we had a good time doing it together. And again, that's not just me. I set the standard to what that looks like to a certain extent, but I'm like, the most proud I am is honestly when I can just like kind of sit back and like let my team and let people step up and lead and sort of just kind of represent the company in a way that I would be proud of. And it's the most rewarding part of all this, is to have that now start to happen.
You know, it's interesting. Like, you can sense and feel the pride of being the leader that comes out in your voice when you talk about your team. And one of the things we've been thinking about is the notion of leadership in our new world and mentoring the next generation of designers and design-led business folks. And what are some of the things that you've taken as lessons that you've applied? I know you started off talking about your intern growing up and being like the MVP of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. There's been a lot of like writing and sort of conversation around sort of like how to manage a new generation of people, right? And I think Gen Z and young millennials, like they see the world in a very different way than how my generation and sort of older generations saw it. And I think it takes a different type of leadership style. And I often talk about Mike Tomlin, who's a football player. Yeah. And I talk about the difference between Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick. And I think I'm a Mike Tomlin type leader, which is like, we're I'm not better than anybody. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm here to support you. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to empower you. I'm here to inspire you. And I'm here to build a system that allows you to do the best work of your career. And that is the way I see it. And I do think that like younger people are not inspired by people maybe just being like, do your job, and sort of that sort of like old school, a little bit more sort of like the authoritative type of leadership. And I think I think about that quite a bit, where it's like my team is quite young. It's a lot of people that are sort of, at the very beginning of their journey, and there are people that are, kind of, yeah, some of them are born in like 2000, and I make jokes about like, Billy Madison or some Adam Sandler movie, and they're just like, I'm reminded every now and then that
are they shaming you for your love of Adam Sandler?
I mean, they just don't understand that Adam Sandler was once a very cool guy. And now it's funny because Adam Sandler's cool again, right? He's become like, he's come out the other side. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that like, everything I try to instill in them sort of the principles of like how to do this thing. And it's not just about the work, it's about people. It's about how to be the best, leaders, and it's how to be the best humans, and it's how to care and lead with sort of, passion, and how to lead with sort of that like, that perspective that this is a privilege to do what we do, and like we're thankful, and we come with sort of like the right attitude. And it's everything about design is constantly changing, right? Like we are working in a path in an industry that just like it won't be the same tomorrow as it was today, and it's constantly evolving. And like you do have to be nimble. You have to be willing and sort of okay with the fact that like it's going to change. It's not the same, it's not the same procedure. We're not performing the same surgery on every patient. It's like the world's changing. Our brands are, the relationship that people have with brands is constantly changing. The people we're working with are different for every type of, on every project. And so I just instill into my team that like, you have to bring the right attitude. It's attitude over skills is sort of the mantra. And that was instilled by some of my first bosses when I worked at vitaminwater back in the day. And the guy whose quote that is, he just sold his second business to Coke for $8 billion. He sold his first one to Coke for $4 billion, which was vitaminwater, and the second one to Coke, which is Body Armor, for $8 billion. Mike Rapoli is this guy I worked with, and he was a leader that was, he was the pride of St. John's University, and he got a 2.5 GPA, and he would say like, attitude over skills. Like, I don't care if you went to Harvard. I don't care like if you're the most talented person. Like, we are all here to do this job together. And when you build that kind of culture, and it's sort of like it's a one team, one dream type feeling. Like it gets the most out of people, and it gets people to want to, charge the hill together. And that's kind of been the way I've always thought about design. It's just like, we're all doing this together, and you have to be able to sort of collaborate well, and to be nimble, and to be, the only thing that's constant is change, and working with other people. And I try to, kind of in that Mike Tomlin way, it's like I'm trying to teach people how to be designers and world-class leaders, but it's really about being the best people, I guess, at the end of the day. And that is what has been my secret superpower. It's just like, it's just like, I care a lot, and I genuinely love what I do. I'm a fan first, and I genuinely bring that to every project. And I think if I can build the next generation of designers that have that philosophy and have that mentality and come to, design with that approach, like, I think that's my, kind of, that's what I want to instill in them.
But what's incredible, and I always love in our conversations, the incredible energy and gravity that you bring things in. Like, people want to be a part of what you're doing. They want to be a part of it. So as I can see, like the startups that you work with, people gravitate towards you and your team, and the legacy brands. I wonder, have you ever had moments in which that gravity pulled in potential clients that weren't a good fit? That they saw your magic, right? And saw your superpowers, and they needed some on their end, but you could tell from the beginning it wasn't a good fit.
Hey, I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say, every project we've ever done has been a perfect relationship and a perfect, sort of collaboration. And the result is, again, like, so much of what we do is part of a team. It's part of, there are two sides of it, and there's multiple, voices. And I'm never the one that's like, this is my voice. This is what it should be. This is what it needs to be. And I think of like, we're here to, I think of myself, and I realize about myself, like some of the people I look up to are sort of like, behind the scenes, people like Rick Rubin, a music producer that has worked with like all these like incredible artists and like has Shangri-La Studios, and it's like this collaborative, amazing environment where people go to make their, you know, their masterpieces and their work. And, you know, I think of ourselves like that, where we, you know, we are the, you know, we're the producers, right, of other people's dreams, right, of other people's ideas, like whether it's, you know, a non-alcoholic beverage company or a furniture company or, you know, or a snack food company or whatever it is. And so we're there to bring their, you know, dream to life. Like we're the stewards of their vision and their ideas. And like at the end of the day, like sometimes their vision and our vision isn't 100% aligned, but at the end of the day, it's their movie, it's their album, and we're here to help them. And if sometimes, listen, if they see it one way and we see it another way, like we're here to give our perspective, and we're here to give our, you know, we're trying to push them towards what we think is right. But I'm never gonna like go over the top and be like, you're wrong, you need to listen to me, like this is how it should be done. And so I think sometimes that leads to work that maybe is not the thing that you put up on your shelf and scream from the rooftops, but it's important work nonetheless. And I don't think that, like, you know, and not all the design studios that we all look up to and all the work that we see from those people, you have to remember that that is 10% of the work that they do.
Right.
And I think people forget that. They just see like all the greatest hits from Pentagram, and they see all the greatest hits from Collins, they see all the greatest hits, and they just see all the work that they pump out, and they're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable, incredible, best in the world stuff. And it is, but it's only a sliver of like the work that they do as a company. And it's the best work that they do. And it's the, you know, it's the stuff that is, that we all try to strive to create, is the best work, the work that we wear with pride. But yeah, not every project goes that, you know, turns out that way. And that's okay too.
And to the point, not every project that's award winning is the only project. When I think of it as a business owner, there's work that I do that's pushing the brand, that's creating value, that's delivering against its core objective, that may never win an award.
Yeah.
And may never be seen in that sense, but it's doing the most, right? It's doing the work that it needs to do.
Exactly. And I think that's like, you know, a lot of times I think of designers design for like other designers. And I think that's something that like we all fall a little bit into the trap of. And I genuinely think like we're designing for people at the largest scale, at the largest volume of humans. And like, not every human loves cool, fucked up sort of like, you know, typography, like the Brooklyn coffee shop down the street does, right? Like there are brands that are sort of more that you can bring some of those new ideas, and they're no less important, but they're maybe not the thing that you're sort of like, again, you're gonna go and scream from the rooftops about.
Right. And in that moment, it may not be the focus of the award or the group, but doesn't mean that it's not valuable. Our conversation today, looking back in that rearview mirror and realizing how important some moves were that weren't at the top of awards, weren't on top of people's minds, but were really important in moving us forward, moving projects forward, moving ideas forward.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, to work, I always come from this perspective, which is like, I'm incredibly fortunate to do this job for a living, right? Because it's something that I absolutely love, and it's something that I want to do independent of the financial like support. And I genuinely come from that perspective, which is a privilege, and it is. And I genuinely think, right, like, you know, to work with some of my favorite brands and to work with, you know, any brand really is something that I'm thankful for. And so I come from that perspective of like, I'm going to try to do the best that we can do. I'm going to try to treat this with everything, you know, I'm going to give it everything I got, and I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to overlook it if doesn't turn out exactly the way that I wanted it to, because it's, at the end of the day, it's helping me do this thing and be a creative, you know, person for a living. To do this, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I want to do it for the rest of my life. And so I'm smart enough to recognize that, like, this is, I'm lucky, and I'm thankful for that. And so I approach it in a way that's not like, oh God, another beverage project, or another,
Right.
oh God, sort of this isn't fun. Everything, like everything has a purpose. And I think for me, the things that that I get to make and put into the world are because I genuinely love to make, and I love to sort of make things with other people, and I love to make things that bring people joy and make people happy. And I think a lot of designers, I think we all come from that place of like wanting to have an impact and wanting to share and wanting to give other people joy. And I think that's, that doesn't always win awards, right? Like when I was at Coke and I was doing all this work for vitaminwater, like we barely won any awards at all. But if you go back and you like think about the 2000s and you think about sort of like vitaminwater and 50 Cent, like we were the first beverage that was like water plus something. Go to your local grocery store, go to Erewhon, go to Whole Foods, and look at how many beverages are on the shelf in terms of
an entire category.
It is a massive influence, and it's like put it in the MoMA, like the fucking vitaminwater design is like it is that iconic and important. Did it win a Cannes Lions? Did it win any awards? No, it didn't. And so I don't think that should be the goal. The goal should be to make things that we love and that the most amount of people love. And I think that's what we do, and that's the thing that I love doing.
I'm gonna share your expression from earlier because you really summed it up before I could even ask the question. It's the joy and pride of putting on the jersey every day.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like I don't play professional sports, but you gotta feel like, if you're a professional athlete and on Sunday you put on the jersey, like you made it and you're in it. And whether that team goes out there and wins or loses, like you're a professional athlete playing at the highest level. And that's why, like for me, I care a lot about merch, and we make a lot of sweatshirts. And I give when I hire people full time, I give them a Letterman's jacket. And that was tradition that my mom gave me a Letterman jacket when I started the company. And so I give that to people when they get, when I offer them a position at the company. And a lot of those people are people that have interned here before, and people that have, sort of been a part of this before that moment. And so I think it's a metaphor for, we're doing this for a profession, for our job, and that is to work and build brands and do things that that people love. And that alone is like that's you have to love that. Like you have to love the process. You have to love like the making. You have to love the meetings. You have to love round 3 of naming when it's like, you know what I mean? Like when it's like, because I think a lot of people are striving for success, and I think I've been talking about success for like the last like 5 to 10 years, ever since I started like doing keynote talks. And I was like, I always felt like it was something I desired, but never could achieve, right? It was always like a door that was like locked. And if I could just do one more thing, then I would get it. And every time I unlocked the door, it got to another level in my career. Like I never felt like, it never felt good enough, right? And I was always sort of chasing that thing, which was, I wanted to feel like a successful designer. And I think a lot of people feel this way, right? They want to feel they're waiting for someone else to anoint them as a sort of like as successful, or to be sort of like you've done good and you've made it in a way. And I think through creating Center and like starting my own business and really kind of like getting to that level where to your point earlier, right, holding the trophies and sort of feeling like I've won. But it didn't, even that for me didn't like, no one put on the successful graphic design hat and gave me the t-shirt, and, there was no parade for it. And I think like what I had to realize was that the doing it, the process, the journey, the making, the being a professional designer that gets to do this thing every day is success. And that has to come from inside, and you have to be comfortable, and comes from a security and a confidence of like I'm doing what I love, and that's enough. that's enough. You know what I mean? It's enough to just, and from that perspective, I was successful, in 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I was just a designer that had a paycheck, that was working on a brand that he loved and was having fun. And so I think if that's like, you have to set your own sort of success metrics. You have to set it for yourself and find that thing. And ironically for me, it took until I had my own studio with this team of people to actually sort of feel like I found what I've been looking for, which and if I want to get incredibly cheesy, is like finding my center, right? Like finding that sort of thing that is who I am, which is a person who loves to do this and gets to do it every single day. And so for me, that is it's incredibly freeing, and I think it's been a journey though.
Well, I'm going to ask to look around the corner for a second then.
Yeah.
And we talked about what you're grateful for as we move into 2021, but what are you most excited about for 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I think the world is changing at a pretty fast clip here. I think obviously the last couple of years have been incredibly challenging and incredibly, I mean, I don't think anyone thought at any point 5 years ago that we would be even this meeting right now, a fireside chat over Zoom with people watching, and we're living in a very different world than we were living 5 years ago. And I think that's really exciting, and really, as I was talking about before, change is always going to happen in the relationship that people have with products and businesses and brands. Ultimately, that's constantly evolving. And I do think it feels like right before Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and social media changed the way that we live our lives, in 2007 and 2006, right? Right before that big switch. And I do think that's coming. I do think we're right before it, and NFTs and crypto and the metaverse and all of those things that are coming. Today, December 8th, 2021, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have a clear understanding of what those things are, because I do not, and I will not pretend to. But I do understand that the way in which people interact with brands and products and the world is changing. And that is something that as designers, right, we're always going to be involved in our ability to solve problems, to make people, as you say, want to be a part of things, and to sort of want to, pick up a bottle or a can of United Sodas at the store, and just that feeling of oh, I gotta try that. I want to be a part of it. I gotta follow. I gotta engage, and I want to show up to a dinner party with a bottle of House, and these things are always going to exist in a physical world. And I love creating things that are physical and tangible and not on a phone.
Right.
And I think that's always been a part of my work, is making things that people hold and touch and carry, because I do think those things are a signal of who we are as people. But I do think the world is changing, and I think things we're going to be, sort of in a more virtual environment, just like the one we are here now. And I do think it's going to change a lot of things. And I am curious about that, and I have to do the work. And I think to really understand it, because it's very easy to make fun of people buying $1 million JPEGs and being like, what's going on here? But I do think that once I'm done making those jokes, and sort of making fun of the McRib NFT on my podcast, I do think there's a changing of the guard in terms of our relationship, and the way that technology and the way that sort of brands are a part of our everyday life. And I think we're gonna, I think it's on designers to really kind of to be at the forefront of that, because in many ways we see into the future, right? Our job is to be hey, here's what the future looks like, and here's what your brand can look like or can do in in the future. And I think for us, we have to be looking into sort of where we're going as a culture. And I do think it's going to be a really interesting next 5 to 10 years, and I'm excited for it. And I do have to sort of this is where my sort of age, I start to sort of feel behind the curve, because I'm no longer a 21-year-old kid with my finger on the pulse of everything. And so I have to, that's why also young people and many of them on my team, they teach me as much as I teach them. And it's been really helpful, and it's been really, wonderful, that sort of exchange of ideas, and to really kind of figure out where we're going, because it's
It's powerful.
it's
Good
powerful. Yeah.
ideas come from everywhere. Something I always believe. And
Oh yeah.
so I'm going to ask you, in the sense of time travel,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to come. We're going to go back to your first day at vitaminwater.
Oh man.
What would you tell young Center that first day? What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, just like trust the process. Like, I think that's kind of the feeling. I think a lot of young people, and I definitely relate to this, like, you're like, what's my next move? What's my thing to get to the next step, to like get to this career that I want to be this, and I'm going to be this, but I want to be this, this is my role, and this is what I want to do in the future. And like, I got to make like a million perfect steps to get to it. And I often talk to young people, and they're just like, they're very much like, overwhelmed by the decision that they make today and how it's going to impact them in the future. And I think I resonate with that idea, or that feeling, because I often was thinking about that. But I do think you sometimes, like, you're not always in control of everything that happens. And I do think there's definitely like sliding door moments in my life where I think, like, what if I would have taken this job here, or I would have done this, or I would have said no to this project, or something like this, and like what my life would have been. And so I do think you can plan for the future, and you should. I'm not telling you to not sort of have goals, because to get to what, like, oftentimes I ask young designers, like, what's your dream job? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, it's going to be hard for you to get your dream job if you don't know what it is that you're trying to get in the future, right? And so, but if you do have a dream job, you can set up your sort of place and your sort of steps to get there. But I do think you do have to sort of, you have to take it a year at a time. You do have, like, you can't be constantly stressed and overwhelmed and worried about sort of your, what's next, or what's coming after it, and what you're working towards, because you got to be in the present. You have to be in the now. You have to be kind of, like, sometimes you have to take it one game at a time, right? Like, you have to be like, here's the game ahead of me. And just like, Brian Collins once told me this. He's just like, put your head down and just do the work. Like, just put your head down and just like, just focus on what you're doing right now. Don't be thinking about like what it is you're doing next. Just like put your head down, focus, and do the work. And like, and good things will happen if you do that, and you treat other people with kindness and passion and care, and good things will happen. But try not to think so much, like, which is hard for a lot of people. Like, try not to just to overthink everything. Just like focus on your task at hand. Like, if you're a junior designer and you just got a job at some place, and you are like, this is your first career, like, industry, paycheck, like, just soak it up. Just like, do the work, and kind of learn from other people, and, just take it day by day, and just be kind of like, appreciative and kind of thankful that you are in this amazing profession. And if you have a client like that is paying you, or, it gives you an opportunity to work on your project, like, that's huge. It's amazing, because that work, if you do something great, like, great work will get you to great work, and great relationships will get you to other great relationships. And it all compounds on, but you gotta sort of, you can't just jump from one project to the end. Like, that's just not how anyone that I've ever met that has been, quote unquote, a successful graphic designer in this industry, they have a long story of experience, and, times where they did the work, and they put in their all. And at the end of the day, those people are kind, those people are considerate, they love what they do, and they would be here if it wasn't, if there was no money involved. I truly believe that. I think when you talk to, the Michael Beirut's and the Debbie Millmans, and some of the people that I look up to, like, all of them are better people than they are anything else. And I think that's what has gotten to them to the place that they're at.
I think that's an incredible way to close our fireside out today, my friend. Trust the process, keep your head down, do great work, and great work being done by incredible people. So Thank you, Alex, for joining us. As you can see, brand builder, award-winning brand thinker, entrepreneur, strategist, and Brooklyn's own. Thank
Brooklyn,
you.
we did it.
We did it. Thank you for joining us.
My
Alex,
pleasure.
thank you again. And join us for our next Fireside Chat as we close out the year and look at leadership and design. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thank you to the AIGA for putting this on and for doing all the work they do to champion design.